Now I want to focus on specific groups within the veterans population that have come under attack during the Trump administration. Joining me is retired Army veteran Laila Ireland, a member of SPARTA Pride, a group of trans service members and veterans dedicated to making the U.S. military inclusive. Laila Ireland, welcome to Assembly Required.
Aloha, Stacey. Thank you so much for having me today.
Well, I am delighted to have you, and I want to start with your general reaction to the Trump administration's approach to the VA, to the leadership that they are uplifting at the Department of Defense, and of course, the attack on DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, which includes women, people of color, and groups like the transgender community. And we'll get into specifics more heavily a little later on, but overall, I want to understand how you see this moment as a veteran and as an American.
As a veteran and as a spouse to an active duty service member who also identifies as transgender as well, this is discouraging, disheartening, and really sets a precedence for a lot of really negative things to happen within our government and within our communities. Right now, we're seeing a slew of attacks on our veteran community that really have dedicated their lives to serving this country, and leaving us out on a limb where we're unsure of our future and what that entails for the people that we serve.
And we know you enlisted in 2003 as a human intelligence collector. You then reclassified as a combat medic after your first tour in Operation Iraqi Freedom, 2005, 2006. Service has been integral to how you think about who you are. What inspired you to serve, and how does that inspiration feel in this moment?
Yeah, I come from a long legacy of service in my family. My father was in the military, my grandfather, my great-grandfather. And so essentially being a part of that legacy was a no-brainer for me. And seeing, reflecting on my service in these last years really allows me to be a part of a bigger picture, a bigger thing for our nation and the people that we serve.
At the top of the program, I mentioned that my grandfather served in World War II and in the Korean War and kept coming back to a United States that allowed segregation, in fact, enforced aggressive segregation. And he would tell us that his patriotism had to be bigger than the country because the country didn't see him as fully a part of who we are. You served during the Don't Ask, Don't Tell era. Can you share what it was like being part of the LGBTQIA plus community in the military during that time?
I want to start off with, saying that what a greater proof of patriotism is there than willingly placing one's life on the line for a country that too often fails to see your full humanity. Having served under the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy, the implementation of that policy, seeing the ban lifted on that and continue to serve under the trans ban as well, we have a very rich history, a very long, rich history. And when we look at our history, the rhetoric that is being used, that was being used against the LGBTQ people in the military or women in service or Black African Americans in service has been proven wrong every single time. For myself, in my service, what I've noticed is that every time we have proven that wrong, our service, our ranks, our military has emerged much stronger. Because we are able to bring our full selves to the front line and to the mission. And I think that's what's important. And we talk about currently DEI, and DEI plays a huge part in allowing our talent pool, our exemplary service, to be able to be showcased in a way that allows everyone to be a part of that conversation. So if we continue to have that, if we allow that idea to be able to foster a greater workforce, a greater fighting force, then we are able to really, truly be efficient and as strong as we say we are.
I think that's so important. And I want to get into that more deeply. And to set it up, I want you to talk us through President Trump's current attacks on trans service members. I mean, they didn't just start in this administration. He targeted the population during his first term as well with the trans service ban. But talk about what's different this time and what it means for you and for others when you see this whiplash in our laws and in our rules.
When we're comparing the two terms, right? in the most layman's terms, I will say that the first term was just Trump coming in, taking his administration, dipping his toes into the water and seeing what is going on. During Trump's first term, his administration established a foundation of restrictive policies that targeted trans and LGBTQ people, particularly within the military and public sectors. He reinstated the ban on trans service, which effectively barred trans people from serving openly and restricted the access to necessary medical care. And it fostered instability, fear, and the loss of exceptional talent in the armed forces. So he also rolled back Title IX protections and civil rights safeguards for trans students and workers. And it undermined equal access to education and employment. So when we look at his first term, literally it is just him and his administration dipping their toes in the water, testing the waters out, seeing what he can and cannot do. And when he said he was going to come back, he came back for that second term and did exactly what he saw he could do the first time. Then the second term, he escalated these attacks with a series of executive orders. And I think this is what we're in our first a month and a half of him being in office. He has signed 89 executive orders. And a lot of those executive orders, which have policies that are now currently being implemented, are in regard to trans people, particularly, in the guise of morality and unit cohesion or keeping women safe. But that's not what it is, right? This targeted purge, it threatens our military readiness, national security, community effectiveness, and the fundamental well-being of LGBTQ Americans. These policies do not merely impact those directly targeted. They degrade the overall effectiveness, integrity, and global standing in the U.S. and the armed forces.
We know that this new policy, it says within 30 days, the Pentagon must identify service members with, quote, gender dysphoria and disqualify them from service, remove them from their roles. What have you been hearing from trans service members who've been told that they're no longer welcome in the military?
Yeah, I have goosebumps just listening to you ask that question. It is, again, I think it's really disheartening and discouraging. You have tons of thousands of service members who are currently serving in austere environments in roles that require so much training and time invested. And so the pulse of our people, if I may, is that yes, it is growing increasingly difficult every day, but the pulse of our members is that they're going to lace up their boots, put that uniform on, and continue to show up every day and do the job they have been trained and entrusted to do until the very last moment they are ordered not to. As the former SPARTA membership director from 2016 to 2021, I have been able to see the hardships that we have faced, the fight that we started in the beginning, and to see where we're at. And I have offered my voice when our service members are literally being silenced and not able to speak for themselves. Trans service members just want to continue serving. They want to be able to have the opportunity to keep using the skills that the military and this nation has invested in them as warfighters. Evidence shows that for the last decade, trans service members have been openly serving, and they've upheld, the highest standards in excellence. They have served with distinction, excelled in their careers, and continue to be the leaders that we need in our communities, within their units and communities. So there's no reason to deny trans service members or trans Americans the opportunity to serve this nation.
We know that anti-trans rhetoric has long been a staple of the Republican Party, extending beyond military bans. And in fact, Trump used the State of the Union address last week to vent on several, false and troubling rants that dehumanize the trans community. And unfortunately, we're starting to see some of that creep into the left. What do you want to see those people of good conscience step up and do to advocate for the trans community?
Yeah, the folks on the left, I think I have a good understanding of how politics work. I've been working with folks on the Hill for over a decade now, and I've learned how to hear and see through the noise. And I think a lot of us have. I've watched you do the exact same thing and on the trail. I don't think that the responsibility of serving this population better falls just to the Democrats. I believe collectively there are measures that both parties can work towards for a more inclusive society that respects and protects the rights for all people. Both parties can absolutely work on reducing bureaucratic hurdles against each other and the communities, and fostering a more collaborative mindset for the constituents and communities that they've been voted on to serve. But in my honest opinion, for the folks on the left, they need to communicate their policies and their ideas more clearly and much more assertively. They have to emphasize their benefits in a way that's both compelling and accessible to the folks on the other side of the aisle, and to the general public. So there's a definite shift in politics right now, and we're seeing people kind of just sit back and with their popcorn and just, the folks on the right are just eating their popcorn like, I'm going to wash my hands and let what happened happen. The folks on the left cannot do that. We cannot afford to do that. We need to be more assertive in fighting this and standing up for the trans community as well.
Laila, I want to close out with my favorite question, which is, what can our audience do to support service members, including trans service members who are struggling right now? And I want you to take this moment to plug the work that you do with SPARTA Pride.
The work with SPARTA, we're fostering a community, a space for our trans service members and folks who are potential candidates to enlist into the military. These are people that are volunteering their time and their sacrifice and their dedication to serve this country. But when we talk about what our communities can do to better serve the trans community, or our veterans as well, to better serve our veterans, particularly, where infrastructure lacks, we must extend the olive branch to a lot of people. We have to be open-minded. We have to be open. We have to present with open arms and open hearts. Our veterans have sacrificed their time, their life, their families, and that cannot go unnoticed just because they identify a certain way, just because they love a certain type of person, just because they pray a certain way. We need to remember that these people have made all those sacrifices in order for us to be able to sit here and exist. And that's what trans service members are asking for. That's what trans veterans are asking for, the dignity and respect that they deserve for the contribution they have given our communities and this nation, and the security of that, and being able to just be seen as equals. We are not a monolith. We are not martyrs. We are the people that have done this so you can breathe and live and do all the things you want to do. And at the end of the day, if you can see me as equal, then I've done my job by sharing that message with everyone.
Well, I'm going to leave it there because that was a perfect answer. Laila Ireland, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your service. And thank you for the support you're giving to so many millions who need to know that you're out there.
Thank you so much, Stacey. I appreciate you having me today.